Any of you huge fans of washing your hands? Yeah, oh, we got it. Yeah, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock was like, I don't know. They're not very good hand washers. I don't think we didn't even get one yet. I mean, there's only one of you, by the way. Just that's it. Hand washing is something. I'll be honest with you. If I can just be transparent, sometimes I overshare. I think, but I'm just to be honest with you. Hand washing has not been on the list of my things to do normally or regularly for a really long time. And then COVID changed that. I think it was because there was a sign everywhere that says wash your hands. Used to be it was just employees had to wash their hands. But now everybody has to wash their hands or is frowned upon. You know the pressure I'm talking about? You're in the bathroom and all of a sudden you're thinking like, it's 50-50 whether I'm washing my hands or not. But the person in front of you goes to the sink and gives you a little side eye and you're like, oh shoot, I can get out of here. Because we're probably going somewhere. They're going to look at me funny, and so here I am washing my hands. By the way, in our bathroom, just to be honest with you, it's an incredible hand washing experience because we have really good hot water. And if I'm going to wash my hands, I want my hands to be burning. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I want, and we can accomplish that here. I wasn't sure if it was happening in the ladies' side of things, but it was confirmed after the 9. Multiple women came up to me afterwards and said, hey, we got hot water in the ladies' side too. I'm telling you, especially as cold as it is today, a good warm hand wash just feels good. You know what I'm saying? Let me give you some statistics about hand washing. On average, you come into contact with 300 surfaces every 30 minutes. How about that? So when I first started reading this earlier in the week, I was searching for hand washing statistics, and I read this, and I was like, I'm going to keep track of how many surfaces I touched. And I lost count. I got to like 20-something. I was like, I cannot do this for the next hour and figure out how many surfaces I'm coming in contact with. But 300, that's what they're saying. And in the process of that, you get exposed to 840,000 germs, right? We should be washing our hands, I guess. Here's the deal, though. Only 5% of people wash their hands correctly. Oh, we got a groan. Only 5% of people, so 95% of us have no idea what we're doing when we go wash our hands. And just in case you want to know, I've got this is how you wash your hands, right? Most people only wash their hands for 6 seconds. You know what I'm saying? 6 seconds. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I got some yeps. Like, that's it. Yeah, 5.5 to be honest. We time it. That's it. 6 seconds. You're supposed to wash your hands for 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Now, if you can't put your stop, if you got a little Apple Watch, your little thing, timer, stopwatch, you can just, according to what online Google says, you can just sing happy birthday to yourself or out loud. But you sing happy birthday, and by the time you're done, that should be 20 seconds. I have timed myself singing happy birthday. I sing a quick happy birthday, evidently. You know what I'm saying? I gotta draw it out a little bit. I need a little more southern drawl in it to get me to the full 20 seconds. But I was in there. In fact, I washed my hands just a while ago, and I tried it again just to see, and for sure it didn't work. It didn't work. The reason I'm talking about hand washing to start off is because there's actually a moment in the life of Jesus where hand washing becomes a really big deal. In fact, there's a pretty big little disagreement over it. And we're going to get to that in a second, but I wanted to kick it off with hand washing because we're going to look at a very human moment and followers of Jesus and those who are connected with Jesus in terms of hand washing. Before we get there, let me recap us in terms of where we're at in our series of Define Christians so that everybody is caught up, at least as best I can, in just a few seconds. The first thing is when we said, hey, we want to define Christian, we want to let the Bible do the defining. And we've recognized we've got some issues in our current community that create a little bit of a baggage of what happens. Number one, we have a lot of systems. We're great systems people. And a lot of times when we create systems, the intention was to create clarity, but it actually doesn't create clarity. It kind of muddies things up a little bit. Some of those systems that we've created are like denominations. And denominations do incredible work all over the world. They fund incredible initiatives, and together the power that they bring together are enormously incredible things. But each little denomination, there's about 38,000 of them, have their different view and opinion about what the Bible says on particular issues and those kind of things. And for sure, the church that you're currently sitting in at the moment is a church that just believes, hey, the Bible is clear. And so especially on some of these basic things, we think it's clear enough just to simply read the Bible and believe that it's trustworthy, right? And so when we attempt to understand the idea of Christian, we ask the question, where did the name come from, and does the Bible tell us? The answer is yes, the Bible does tell us. The Bible tells us very specifically that the word Christian isn't a word that we chose to give ourselves. Like if people didn't walk around with Jesus saying, hey, are you a Christian? Are you a Christian? Are you a Christian? I'm a Christian. I've got a bracelet that means that I'm a Christian, or a t-shirt, or I listen to Christian music. Like there wasn't those kind of things. They referred to themselves as disciples of Jesus, or followers of the way, or brothers and sisters, right? Now, there were outsiders at a very particular city, and we're not going to get into the specifics of the city. You can go back and listen to the other messages. There were outsiders, people outside of the church, outside of followers of Jesus. They began calling this group of people that followed Jesus Christians. Now, what's interesting about this is that it wasn't a title we wanted for ourselves or even called ourselves. It takes a long time for followers of Jesus to begin using the word Christian about ourselves. We continue just to say disciples of Jesus. Now, the interesting shift of why this matters is because today, if we were to ask the question, hey, how do you become a Christian? We think about moments. We think about, okay, I can tell you about the moment that I became a Christian. Whereas if you were to ask anyone in the first century, how do you become a Christian? They would look at you funny. Like, what do you mean, how do you become a Christian? Like, because for them, as a disciple or a follower of Jesus, the way that you followed Jesus was you followed Jesus. Whereas when we ask the question, how do you become a Christian, or what is a Christian? In the first century, they would have said a Christian is someone who follows Jesus. Whereas in our culture today, in our community, we would see the two things as almost separate. I can be a Christian and not follow Jesus. Because we've turned being a Christian into a moment instead of what it always was in the Bible, a movement of a relationship. And so no one was walking around saying, hey, let me tell you about when I became a Christian. They were talking about, let me tell you about how I follow Jesus day in and day out. It wasn't a moment that happened in their lives. It was a movement that was happening in their lives. And it started with a faith that Jesus was who everyone was saying he was, the Son of God, who died on the cross, resurrected from the dead, and is coming back for us. And that was what started the movement. And that movement continued not only in their everyday life, but it will continue for eternity. And so we asked the question, okay, if we understand where Christian came from, and we understood, how do you become a Christian? You begin to follow Jesus. And we looked at all those specifics. Again, you can go back to the earlier message if you want to get into the specifics. It then brings us to the next question then. Well, if that's how you begin a movement with Jesus, how do you continue a movement with Jesus? And last week, we looked at the first of four really important pieces of a continued movement with Jesus. And that was our thoughts. What happens inside of our heart. This week, we move to the second piece. Thoughts come first. The second thing, though, is our words. Our words. Now, you might be asking, what in the world does words have to do with washing your hands? Well, there's a guy by the name of Matthew who is a really good friend of Jesus, a very close follower of Jesus. He would have for sure been considered a Christian. But he was a disciple of Jesus, follower of Jesus, student of Jesus, and he writes a book that tells a lot about the experiences that he was a part of in and while he was around Jesus. And there was this one moment where the religious leaders were on like a little bit of a witch hunt, and they were trying to get a gotcha moment with Jesus. And so they come to him and they say, hey, here's the deal. I'm not going to put it on the screen. I'm just going to tell you. It says, hey, why do the Christians that follow you around, why do the disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat, right? So this is in Matthew chapter 15. Jesus is sitting there. There's a big public crowd, and these religious leaders, they come up and in front of everyone, they say, hey, Jesus, teacher, rabbi, excuse me, sir. The guys that follow you, you're a great teacher. Oh, so I love everything you do, right? This is so great. Can you explain? He's got a little question, just a little small question. Why is it that your followers don't wash their hands before they eat? Why do they break the tradition of the elders and not wash their hands? We're just curious, And they think they got him because Jesus can respond in one of two ways. He can say, well, they don't wash their hands because the elders are stupid and it was a stupid rule. He can say that, Or he can say, man, shoot, we missed that. I didn't even think that was, man. And so he either wasn't a good teacher or he doesn't care about the traditions and just thinks they're stupid and ridiculous, right? And so they got him. This guy who's supposed to be perfect, who thinks of everything, who gets it all right, they got him. One way or the other, it doesn't matter how he responds. Now, what's interesting is that there's not a law that says, hey, every single Jewish person must wash their hands before they eat a snack or a meal or whatever, right? Now, the way that we get there is they refer to it as a tradition of the elders. I'm not going to get into the history, but it takes a long time for them to get to this place, and eventually it just becomes a really good tradition, right? It's a good tradition. It's tied to some theology that's fairly significant, but it's not like, hey, this is a part of the law that was given from God. You must wash your hands, every single one of you, every single time. It just has become what they do, right? And so Jesus responds by saying this, and we are going to put this on the screen. He says, don't you see whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? Time out. Did Jesus just make a poop joke? I think he did. I think he did. That's exactly what he did. He says, hey, don't you see whatever you put in your mouth goes into your stomach and then it comes out of your body? But the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. In other words, what comes out of your mouth matters. Words matter. What comes out of your mouth matters. Words matter. Now, when we look at controlling our mouths, which admittedly, this is a difficult thing, you know. I like to run my mouth, you know. I'm a good mouth runner, you know. My mouth can run me into all kind of bad places, you know. And it's just, sometimes it's just, so when I think in terms of, hey, how do I get some control over that? How do I make sure that my mouth is in line with what I want my heart to be? How do I fix this problem that I'm aware that I have from time to time? Right? What do I do? Maybe I can get some insight from the Bible about controlling my tongue, controlling my mouth. Well, a guy named James, little brother of Jesus, he has something to say about our mouths and our words and our tongues and the way that it kind of works with the world. He's pretty significant because his perspective is from someone who did not believe Jesus was legitimate. You can imagine just growing up as with an older brother who thinks he's God, and that just seems fairly normal, right? And so everything that he does just isn't, just like whatever, you're crazy or nuts. But all of a sudden the resurrection changes everything for people. And so James comes to faith on the backside of that, ends up being an incredible leader in the church. And James writes these words specifically about our mouths. He says this in James 3. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. Man, that's intense. That's intense. He's saying, hey, let's make sure we get perspective here. Like our mouths are a tiny part of who we are. And just like a ship, you can have the biggest ship in the world, but the rudder is teeny tiny relative to the overall size, yet it directs the entire thing where it's going to go. It goes so far to say, hey, think about a forest fire, and how do they start? Just a teeny tiny spark. Forest fires don't create forest fires, Like the teeny tiny spark creates a forest fire. In other words, what he's saying is words can determine direction. Words can determine direction. How many times, maybe it's just me, but how many times have I, and hopefully y'all don't know, it's a lot though, how many times have I said something that I'm thinking, shoot, I done said it now. I done planted a flag, and my pride is not going to let me unplant this flag. Like I've done said it out loud. I said it very convincingly, with some passion. And I've said it convincingly with some passion. I've planted my flag. And now, even though I know on the inside I am wrong, I should not have said that. I should not have gone about it this way. I have now planted my flag, and I will stay with the flag because I done said it. you know? And the fire is raging. You know what I'm saying? It's just going. But no, it has determined my direction. And I'm going to stay the course because I am as stubborn gets. Just ask my wife. You know what I'm saying? This is intense. Words matter. But hold on. Can we not go back to first grade for a second? You know what I'm talking about? When sticks and stones would break your bones, but words would never hurt you? Can we not go back in time to where that was true? Can we not just take a little journey and say, hey, can't we just be in kindergarten? Words don't matter. They're just words. Somebody picks up a stick and hits you with it. Okay, we got a problem, but words are words. But what's the truth in that? Truth is, words matter, and we were just lying to our kids, right? Like we don't know. We can't take a stick to the bully at school. That'd be frowned upon. By some, by others, it'd be like celebrated. You know what I'm saying? But we can't take a stick to them. And so what's our tool? Just don't listen to them. What do you mean don't listen? I can't close my ears. You're right, you can't. That's impossible. You're going to have to listen to them. But don't let it matter what they say, right? It doesn't matter what they say. But words matter. Words do matter. He continues. He says, all kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Man, that's intense. He's saying, look, we got wild beasts that have a completely different mind all their own. And we got people around the world that's figuring out how to make them do tricks. We are making lions shake. We are making elephants dance in circles, right? They will get up on a platform and hold a ball on their nose. We can tame the beasts. It's not just those that walk on land. Like we are taming things in big aquariums, right? We got whales jumping out and dolphins doing all kinds of stuff. Like we can tame some animals. But he says nobody's figured out how to tame the tongue. And it's a part of us. Then he goes so far to says no man or woman, no human being can tame the tongue. Well, that seems fairly hopeless. He goes so far to say, out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. And so we got a both and thing going on, you know? We got a both and. Like we're in church today, you know? We're in church. We probably sang a song a little bit, maybe a chorus. If we didn't sing it with our mouths, we sung it in our brain, we read the words. We're moving in the same direction because music took us there. Or maybe your day started at some point this past week with, man, God, thank you for yesterday. Thank you for the day in front of me. I'm so excited about it, right? If there's been some kind of acknowledgement to the goodness of God that's coming out of your mouth. But at the same time, we got this other stuff that's kind of sitting there that's kind of creeping in on that goodness. Or maybe creeping out of our goodness. He says, this should not be. Why should this not be? I think in the South we say it this way. You kiss your mama with that mouth, you know? But it ain't about whose mama we're kissing. Don't be kissing nobody else's mama. Just only your mama. Sorry. Only your mama, okay? Only your mama. But it seems hopeless. It says no human being can tame the tongue. James says this also. He says, those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Dang, James. James, you're killing me here. He says a couple things. You deceive yourself. Now, what does this mean? It means that we justify it by saying things like this. Oh, man, yeah. But I mean, on the inside, I'm a really good dude, you know? I'm a good dude. I love Jesus. But I got some times where I just, I got a little mouth running, I got a little mouth running thing. But that's just what happens there, But I'm a really good dude. And so what James is saying is like, hey, we are deceiving ourselves. We have convinced ourselves that everything's fine. Like, oh yeah, we got no problem. On the inside, I'm a good dude. I'm a good dad. I'm a good husband. I'm a good follower of Jesus. I just got a little mouth problem. It's just a little mouth problem. That's all it is. It's just a little mouth problem, And he says, hey, no. We are deceiving ourselves. Not that someone else has deceived us. We have deceived ourselves. And so that should be the red flag that says, hey, pay some attention here. When we start saying, oh, well, I just got a little mouth running issue, but on the inside, I'm actually a good dude. You know what I'm saying? I'm deceiving myself. Man, that's scary. And then he hits us up again. Just in case me deceiving myself wasn't a bad enough little smack in the face, he says, your religion is worthless. Well, that ain't good. That's harsh. Is it harsh though? Or does it simply allow us to double down on the reality and the statement that words matter? That words matter. That they're not just empty. That they matter. That they're not just fly off the cuff. That they matter. That words matter. In fact, it goes so far, there's a place in the Bible that we refer to as wisdom literature. And there's a lot of just really practical advice about how to go about some really everyday type situations that are found in this wisdom literature. In particular is a place called Proverbs. And Proverbs says this about what comes out of our mouths. It says, the tongue has the power of life and death. The tongue has the power of life and death. How is that possible? What do you mean the tongue has the power of life and death? That's big. Life and death? And a tongue? Are you kidding me? To help kind of frame this a little bit, what I want you to do is, I just want you to think about the person in your life that you value a lot, okay? Like someone like, man, when they talk, you listen, okay? And I'm going to fill in for that person just for a couple minutes, right? So I'm going to fill in. So if I'm your mama, your granny, then I'm just going to be mama and granny for a second. And if I'm dad, best friend, whoever that is in your life, that when they talk, that you are glued, that their words matter, right? Okay, everybody there? Cool, so I'm going to talk on their behalf. Shut your mouth, right? I don't want to hear another word out of you. Here's the deal. Because you're a worthless piece of trash, and I've been carrying your rear end for too many decades, and I'm sick and tired of it. I can't stand the sight of you. I can't stand the sound of your voice. In fact, I can't even be in your presence anymore. Get out of my house. I don't want to see you again. I don't want to hear your name. I'd rather find myself in a place where I don't even see your face in my dreams. You disgust me. The power of life and death. Do you feel the power of death? Or it's the other side of it, right? It's, hey, I believe in you. You're one of the greatest gifts God has ever given me in my life. I'm a better person because you exist, because every single day you add value to who I am. I don't even think you think about it. You just walk around and you make me a better person. You inspire me. That every morning I wake up and I know that you are one of the greatest gifts God has given me. And if I'm fully transparent with you, I would move heaven and earth to make sure you stay safe. The power of life and death. Words matter. So what do we do with the issue that we've created? If we've got a tongue that the brother of Jesus says we can't tame, that we can't do anything to make it do exactly what we want to, that it's a world of evil amongst the parts of the body, that itself is set on fire by hell. So what do we do with it then? Matthew also records this moment. This is Jesus talking. He says, make a tree good, and its fruit will be good. Or make a tree bad, and its fruit will be bad. For a tree is recognized by its fruit. You brood of vipers, how can you who are evil say anything good? For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him. And an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in him. He's saying, hey, no man can tame the tongue. But Jesus is acknowledging this, and he's saying, hey, here's the deal. Here's the deal. You can't do it, but I can. Yeah, you on your own, no human being can tame the tongue. But he said, I can make you good. I can make you good. You can't make yourself good, but I can make you good. And out of the goodness that I put inside of you and I help start to cultivate in your life, out of that goodness, that's how we tame what your tongue does. Jesus is saying, hey, I can make a tree good. We're the tree. He said, I can make a tree good. Did you notice what he's saying? He's saying, hey, that our words simply come from our thoughts or our heart. And we kind of paired that heart and thoughts together last week. That we think of those things like, hey, what's in us? That our words are just an overflow of what's happening on the inside. You know, when Jesus, let's go back up to the hand washing story, where the religious leaders are upset that his followers are not washing their hands before they eat. Jesus, there's another verse past verse 18 that I'm going to read you. Jesus says this, but the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. And then Jesus is going to give a list of those things. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. So he says, hey, here's the deal. Out of your mouth comes what defiles you. Let me give you some examples of what those things are. And then he gives this list. Now, when we hear the list, what we ought to hear is this at times can be the default of what happens in our heart. But Jesus is saying, hey, I can make it good. That doesn't have to be the default that comes out of who you are. Yeah, that evil is a real thing, and evil has a hold of every single one of us. But Jesus can break the hold and then can take what was kind of rotting on the inside and say, hey, I can make that good. And so what we ought to hear is, hey, Jesus can take all that entire list and he can bring the opposite, the good opposite of that. So instead of murder that happens from in our heart that overflows out of us, he says, hey, I can bring honor and respect and care for all life that God has given. That if God gives it life, I can bring an enormous amount of honor and care and respect for it. He says adultery. This is one of the largest issues in our country today. Folks who struggle with a monogamous relationship and a commitment within a marriage. It's killing our families. But Jesus says, here's the deal. I can make the opposite come out, which is what? Faithfulness. He said, I can do that. I can bring faithfulness to the table. Instead of sexual immorality, he says, hey, here's the deal. I can bring sexual intimacy saved between a man and a woman in the context of a committed marriage. He says, hey, I can do that. That's where all of those sexual things are supposed to happen. And there's a really nice big list. It's got a lot of variety on it. But he says, hey, when it comes to some integrity in our sex life, he said, I can breed that. I can help that form inside of you. Instead of theft, he says you can earn it. That you don't have to succumb to the instant gratification culture that we're in. This is, I make a bad decision in this moment. Instead of false testimony, right? That's just a fancy way to say you're a liar. Instead of lies, he can bring truth. Instead of slander, he can bring encouragement. Words matter. But I think what we see is that words are connected to week one. Words are connected to our heart. And so let's not deceive ourselves and think to ourselves, I got a great heart. I just need to work on the words. No. Here's the thing. If you're going to walk away this morning and in your brain, you're going to, if this is what you're thinking, all right, yeah, I got some work on my words to do this week, right? And so I'm going to work on it. If that's what your takeaway is right now, let me help you reframe it just for a second. That is not what you need to work on this week. You do not need to work on saying less filthy things or talking to someone in a negative way. That is not what you need to work on. You know what that is? And that's part of our biggest problem in church, right? Is because we got a stomach ache, and so what do? We take Pepto-Bismol. Pepto-Bismol doesn't solve the stomach ache. It just helps with the symptoms. And when we read the Bible, we begin to understand, hey, I don't need to figure out how to talk different. I need to ask the question, why do I not want to talk different? I need to ask the question, why is it a struggle for me? Because the answer is going to be what's happening in here is going to be the answer. And so if we start here, the result, week 2, the words piece, it will naturally happen. So yeah, you can get a gold star for not cursing out the guy that cut you off this week, for not giving a piece of your mind to fill in the blank, whoever it's going to be that you are ramping up to and you've already rehearsed it in the mirror 16 times. You can give yourself a gold star on all those things, and maybe you're going to feel good, and rightfully so, right? Rightfully so. Okay, well, I avoided some really nasty that's positive things. But if you stop there, you're missing it. You got to ask the question, why did I want to do that in the first place? Why is this my natural reaction when this happens? When I get so frustrated and agitated and I just get tore up, why is this the only thing I can think about doing? That's the question we got to ask. Because out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's the overflow of the heart. So we got to ask that question. Words matter because they are a mirror image of our heart. Let's not deceive ourselves and pretend. At the end of the day, if you were to take a few moments this week at the close of each day, and you were just to go in front of your bathroom mirror, and you were to begin to write the words that you said today, and you were to fill that mirror up every single day, when you get to the end of the week, and you were to look at that mirror, would you recognize the reflection staring back at you? In your mind, in your brain, would you resonate and say, man, I identify with these words? Because whether or not you want to identify with them or not, it's the truth. That is who you are this week. But the words you're using are a reflection of who you are. And so would you be okay with looking back at your words over and over again? I don't think any of you have a bathroom mirror that large. I'm just saying if you did, you could. You know what I'm saying? Because our words are a reflection of our heart. This also means, though, that we are not perfect. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not a call for us to begin policing each and every other person's every other sentence. You know? Because we don't want to just be symptom people. You know what happens when that happens? It's what happens anytime I play golf with strangers. As soon as they hear my pastor, they stop cursing. You know, up until then, it was fine. But as soon as they ask me on the third or fourth tee, so what do? I have to decide. Do I want them to be themselves for the rest of this time, or do I want them to fake it? You know? And then I decide whether I want to ruin their day or not. You know? What we don't want are people walking around pretending to be someone they aren't because all we're doing is Pepto-Bismoling them. No, we want them, I want all of you to feel your real self whenever I'm around you. But I also want you to know that we want the best. Hopefully you want the best out of me, and I do want the best out of you. And I hope that you have relationships in your life that also want the best out of you. Not the fake Pepto-Bismol best, where we can just not have a tummy ache while we're in public and wait till we get home and let it all go. Like, that's not what we're doing. No, we want a legitimate change. And so you be you. And let's work on you, and you help me work on me together. Let us not pretend. Let's be legitimate. Let's just be upfront and honest. I'm not deceiving myself. I know I got a heart issue. Let's just talk about it. At the end of the day, this is the way we summarize it all. Thoughts lead. Words follow. Thoughts lead. Words follow. I think probably a lot of us have some word and mouth issues. The solution to that is right here. It's right here. Any other solution is just temporary. Don't expect it to last.